So Arya and Gendry? Oh no! Go Ari, go Ari, go A, go A, go A. We knew it was going to happen. It was going to happen sooner or later, and it finally happened, and it was fantastic the way it happened, right? Ari, look, listen. Obviously, this was her first time, right? This was her very first time, but the homegirl is a freak. She is indeed a freak.
Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way.
Hey. Yes, just yes, in every sense of the word, ladies. This episode was perfect, man. This was perfect. I was so worried seeing last week's next week episode preview that it was gonna be fighting, and I got all of it, everything I wanted in my episode. I told you, man. I told you. The banter, the lines, all of the context behind the meat, behind the fighting and the sex is why I love Game of Thrones. And this episode was all of it. It was all context. It was all banter. One line is zingas. It was Game of Thrones at its goddamn best. My heart, I'm singing, y'all. Listen. Let me just say this right before we get into the details of what happened in episode 2 of season 8 of Game of Thrones. I am filled to the brim. I am happy no matter what moves forward in the rest of the season and the rest of the series. I am happy. This is the episode I needed to be happy. Right? I think this might be my second favorite episode. The only time I feel like I can get happier than this is if my guy, Tyrion, ends up on the throne at the end of Game of Thrones. That seems very unlikely. Homeboy's gonna die, Bronn's gonna kill him, and I'm gonna get there because that shit's gonna hurt after this episode. But, if your guy wins at the end of the season, that's when you might be happier than this moment right now. All of the heroes, everyone that's on the Dany Jon team, everyone you wanted was all in the same place, talking shit, talking smack, giving people attitude. You felt the tension, the love was in the air. I see you, Arya. I see you, boo-boo. Oh my God. This episode was phenomenally the greatest. This is why we watch Game of Thrones. All right, let's talk about the goddamn episode, right? I'm already losing my goddamn mind here. All right, so Game of Thrones season 8, episode 2, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and it was AKA what I like to call it, Squad. This was the crew. This was the team. This is who you wanted to see come together. Since you knew people were going to come together to fight, this is who you wanted, right? This is who you wanted. And everyone was there and in a fantastic fashion. So they picked up right where they left off from last week. Jaime Lannister in front of the Queen, Sansa, and Jon. And he's doing his trial situation, figuring out if he's going to get his head cut off or not. And it begins with one of my favorite lines. Dany comes out swinging. She says, I was promised an army. I don't see an army. I see one man with one hand. Ooh, that shit cuts deep, boo-boo. That shit cuts deep, but it's true, and it's the honest truth, right? And then Tyrion comes in, tries to protect his brother. Please, trust my brother. And Dany's looking at Tyrion and says, you better step back, homeboy, because you want me to trust your brother just like you wanted me to trust Cersei, right? That's what you wanted, so this boy can slit my neck. Dany is pissed and she wants his head rolling on the floor. No questions asked, right? But she has to be civil. She has to be civil because her boo-boo Jon is there, right? Okay. And then Bran says that line. The shit that gets you shivering, right? Bran, this dude sees everything, man. This dude sees everything, right? From the beginning of time, he's seen everything. But Bran finally says that line. The things we do for love. He knows. He knows something. By the way, this episode, Bran was a little bit better. He was having a little more conversations. Like, it was more conversational than like a stoic human being with no emotions. He still was that, but it was a little more conversational. I feel bad being such a dick to him last review. But I still, I don't know, man. You can't relate to the man, right? We'll get there. And then Brienne Stark, And then Brienne comes to defend Jaime, and I love this because this relationship, I Googling, I want to do you, you want to do me, shit goes throughout the episode, and we'll get there because this thing, oh, the emotions, the greatness in this episode. Yeah. So Brienne comes and tells Dany and Sansa, I believe Jaime. He's a good man. He's honorable. He's here for a reason. And then Tyrion backs him up and says, why would he come here alone with no army? Why would he do that if he was lying, right? I mean, he's surrounded by, it's all of us versus just him. He's not going to be doing anything stupid. Everyone believes him. So at the end, the Starks all agree. So Jon and Sansa are like, you know what? Sansa's like, Brienne, if you trust him, I trust you, so you're good. If you're going to fight with him, I'll let you do your thing. Jon is like, we need as many men as possible. I just want to kill this goddamn Night King. Can we get this over with, please and thank you? Dany finally agrees, but she's bitter as fuck. Dany is bitter. Dany wants her way, but she's being civil. She's being civil, all right? She's in someone's home, and she took my advice from last week, right? She's not as salty. She's not as mean. And that goes right on to what happens next. Jorah goes in and talks to Dany and like, look, Dany, I wanted to be your hand, right? I did. I wanted to be your hand. And I feel like I still want to be your hand right now. But Tyrion, he's the right man. You've got to forgive him. But more importantly than forgiving, not more importantly, because that's super important, but as well as forgiving Tyrion, you need to go talk to Sansa. Please take my advice, if I may. You're not going to get the respect of Sansa, of the Starks, of the North, if Sansa, Lady of the North, hates you, right? You can't just win them over by doing their king or doing their lord, Jon Snow. You need them to respect you. You need them to like you. And this is why I remember, maybe because I haven't seen Dany in action in so long, but I remember why I love Dany. And this is what separates her from Cersei. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to be honest, and it comes to the end of the episode, but Dany and Cersei are power hungry as fuck. All they want is the power. I mean, and you can just see clear as day, right? Clear as day. Jon is fighting everything but the power. He does not want the power at all, but it keeps getting thrown in his face. You're the king of the North. You're the man of the Night Guard or whatever he was. You're the king of all seven kingdoms. And he's like, fuck, please stop. Please stop. He actually died and they brought him back. He's like, leave me alone, please. But anyways, the difference between Dany and Cersei is Dany listens. She takes the advice. She understands that she does not know everything, and she actually listens. And that's why I love Dany. I remember. I apologize, Dany. No disrespect from last review, but this is why I goddamn love you. So she does, first of all, goes to Sansa, and she tells Sansa, look, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the tension is between us, but something's going on between us and we need to squash that shit, right? And they finally have a heart-to-heart conversation. Sansa backs Jorah up and says, you need to let Tyrion go. He was nothing but kind to me, and which I respect Sansa for saying. So on top of Dany actually listening, she has the humility to, I would say, basically apologize for being, you know, a little upfront and rude in the beginning. It's not technically an apology, but she's acknowledging the fact that she came in a little heavy-handed and she could have been a little, you know, a little nicer about her coming into someone else's home. So I appreciate this. She has the humility to say, like, I shouldn't have done what I should have done, right? But we're in this together, and we need to kill the Night King. And then Sansa says the truest thing of all true things. Men are easily manipulated by the person that they're in love with, right? And I love this little thing that Dany says. Dany's like, she's honest, and she's like, look, yes, I can see why you see it that way. But the only thing I've ever wanted to do, since I can remember wanting to do everything, is to mount the throne, right? I wanted my power back. I wanted to get revenge on the people who got rid of my people. That's all I've ever wanted to do. And I'm here in the North fighting against the dead. This is Jon's war. This is not my war. Who is the one that got manipulated? And then that's when Sansa is like, you know what? You're right, boo-boo. You're right. Jon's got that thing about him. And Sansa, Dany's like, this is the second man that's done this to me that I've honestly trusted wholeheartady. And I love this. Sansa's like, who's the first? And Dany says, someone taller. Ooh, Jon, the heightest. I feel you, brother. I ain't the tallest homeboy in the stock, right? I feel you. I feel you. Never forget Khal Drogo. Go Drogo, go Drogo, hey go Drogo. Yeah, Drogo's a man's man. Alright, this dude don't fuck around. I wish he was still alive. I mean, everything would be different, but that shit would be fire if he was still alive. Never forget Khal Drogo, right? Never forget. And all of this ends when Theon finally comes, and then Sansa and Theon have their, oh my goodness, I missed you. I'm going to fight for the North. That was fantastic. Great. It's good to have you, Theon. That was a quick travel back, right? 1 day, half a day. I don't know, man. I don't know about these traveling times, right? But yeah, I'm gonna let that go because this episode was too good for me to nitpick about Theon. We don't know how much time has technically gone by. And then we're moving on to another big thing that's happening is after Jaime's trial, Jaime's reunion with everybody in Winterfell, right? And it all starts with the most important one. The ones that had memes galore from last week. Bran and Jaime. Jaime literally just asked the simplest and the most obvious question. Why haven't you told anyone that I'm the one who broke your legs? And then Bran, being his unemotional, unpersonable self, says, why would I do that? We need you for the war. And then Jaime's like, well, what about after? He's like, who said there's going to be anything after? Whew. Bran does not give two shits, man. Bran's like, you know what? I'm just letting y'all know what's about to happen. I'm going to let life be life. This dude, he's, man, I feel like if he just had a little better communicatable skills, I mean, he could give the answers to all the questions in Game of Thrones. I just don't know. All right. We get what we get. The man is half human, half something else. I don't blame him, but goddamn it, I blame him. All right, I just can't understand this brand thing. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Right. So then Jaime moves on. He's talking to Tyrion, and this is when the quibble, the banter, goes back to the way I love Game of Thrones for. I feel like they just cut the fat, and Tyrion's like, Jaime, did Cersei lie about the baby? And I was very, 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 very happy that he asked the question because it solidified my questions about the baby. I wasn't the only one that thought Cersei might have been lying. Tyrion felt the same exact way, which I was like, of course that was something, because everyone might have been thinking that, was thinking that same goddamn thing. Jaime is like, nope. He's not lying, which makes me appreciate Jaime even more. And this is what I like this episode so much, because it reminded me why I care so much for Jaime, right? I think it's super important that we remember that even though Jaime was on the wrong side of the fight, the big fight, for the longest time ever, and he had the simplest motive. He loved Cersei. And because he loved Cersei, he did things for Cersei, right? Because that's something you can relate to. Fighting for someone you love, even though they're not doing the greatest and the best things for everyone's, for the community, for the people, for the greater people at large, as long as you're helping the person you truly love, it makes sense. But the reason you can't get along with Cersei is because she's after the power, right? And that's why I get nervous about Dany, because I'm nervous that Dany wants the power more than she wants to help the people. I feel like all she cares about are her dragons and sitting in the throne. And I think Cersei, all she cares about is staying in the throne. So I get nervous. And that's why we love Jaime, because we know that Jaime has an underlying reason for doing the bad things he has been doing, right? And Tyrion makes that clear. He makes that very clear when he tells when Jaime was like, oh, she fooled all of us, but then Tyrion is like, she never fooled you. You always knew exactly what she was, and you loved her anyways. That shit was like real. Yep, Tyrion, you know things much smarter than you were in season 7. Welcome back, Tyrion. Welcome back. I love it. And then it ends with my favorite, the callback line from when Tyrion said this before, when they were talking about him dying. He tells Jaime, I imagine myself dying at 80, a belly full of wine, and a lady's mouth around my woo-hoo, what's up, good morning. I loved it, because Jaime finished his line. And this is where things turn around for even more fun. So finally, at the end of that conversation, that good brotherly love situation, Jaime turns around and he's eyeballing. He's fucking the shit out of Brienne. Non-stop, he's in love. The man has something for blondes, alright? Someone tell Dany to change the color of her hair, because she might be next. He's got the eyes for the blondes. But Dany I think is white. I don't think it's blonde, but you know what I mean. He's eyeing Brienne hardcore. hardcore, right? He goes down there and he's like, listen, I'm sorry for whatever happened. And that awkward moment where Brienne is like, you've never not insulted me. And then Jaime is like, I would love to fight for you because I'm not the man who I was once. And I'm like, oh, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. But the most important part of that scene is we finally see Podrick. Yo, go Podrick. Go Podrick. Hey, Podrick. I love Podrick. Podrick is back. He's doing his thing. The love between Brienne and Jaime continue at the fireside meeting, but we'll get there. But before we get there, we got to talk about the squad. And this is why I call this episode The Squad. Because this is the scene that got me all bubbly inside. Because you saw everyone. When I say everyone, I mean the main folks that mattered, right? In that circle, in the round table, when they were trying to decide what the war plan was going to be. All of those folks right there. Super important. I know it was a real short scene, but that's what the plan for the war is. And it's a super simple plan. Bran's like, look, the Night King's coming after me. He wants to come after me, so let's lure him out. Theon's like, look, I fucked up. I fucked up the worst. I stole Winterfell from you guys, so I am going to protect Bran, and I'll take that responsibility. Me and the Ironborn. Super simple plan. I like it. I like keeping that stuff simple, because like I told you a million times before, the fighting stuff is extra for me. This episode is why I love Game of Thrones. Moving on with this episode, Sam Tarly comes out with one of the greatest lines I've heard so far. Because they're all talking about what happens if you have all forgotten. If we're all undead, alive, whatever that situation is with those zombies, right? There's no sense in having life. And Sam Tarly was like, yes, if we forget, we aren't men. We're just animals. And that's the truth, man. And then it ends with, again, Dany listening. Again, the reason why we all are pushing for Dany is because she actually learns from her mistakes. She takes advice from people she should take advice from. And she finally looks at Tyrion and says, look, I love it. Congratulations. Yes, you can pick up a sword. I want you to be as strong. Whatever. I don't give two shits. What I need you to do, boo-boo, is I need you to be safe in the crypt. Okay? And Tyrion tries to defend himself. And Dany was like, look, we have 1,000 fighters. What we need is your brains, right? If they all die, it sucks. We have a lost tier. But if you die, we don't have the brain skis to take care of Cersei after this situation. So I need you to be safe. And again, Dany listening to Jorah and Sansa and understanding that Tyrion he's going to lead the strategy into killing Cersei. I believe it. I want to see it. And I want to see Tyrion just dagger. So, that's a lie. I want to see Arya dagger Cersei, but we'll get to Arya, okay? So that's the end of the squad scene. Of course, the end of the squad scene. The big table, strategic plan. Then we move on to the fire pit. The most entertaining, the most fun of the episode happens at the fire before the war. Perfect scene, perfect scenario. I loved it, right? So at the fire... we meet my favorite character of the episode, Tormund. This man is fucking hilarious. Hilarious. This man is entertainment. He brought a smile to me the second he showed up on screen, right? You see what's it called, John walking over to his night watch friend, and you just see Tormund just tackle him in between, because it's Tormund. He doesn't give two shits. He does what he does, man. He's a wildling at heart. He's a wildling, baby. He's a real wild. And right after he hugs John, his mind goes straight. Listen, look, we ain't got no time. We got until tomorrow morning, and then it's time to go. It's time to fight. The war is on. The second he's done saying that, he looks at John straight in the eyeballs and says, is the big woman still here? Oh! This dude ain't playing, man. This dude ain't playing. And then he moves that into the big meeting, the strategic meeting, where he tells everybody, we're all gonna die. He waits. He stares at Brienne. And he says, but at least we'll die together. This dude, he is not playing. He's not playing. I love him. He's goddamn hilarious. He's hilarious. And then they move it to the fire pit. And that's when literally the funniest thing I've heard in all of Game of Thrones is his story about him being the Giant's Bean. I thought I heard that right. I rewinded it a couple of times, but I'm pretty sure it's the Giant's Bean, right? And his story behind being the Giant's Bean, because he walks in there, he wants to sit next to Brienne, he thinks things are gonna get real cozy, but then he sees the tension, the love in the air, the googly eyes between Jaime and Brienne. So he has to puff up his chest. He has to let people know Tormund is here. The Giant's Bean is here. And his story behind being the Giant's Bean. God damn. You can't make this up. This dude is hilarious. He looks at them and says, do you know why they call me Giant's Bean? It's because I killed a giant when I was 10. I snuck into his bed. And I suckled on the giant's wife's tit because she thought that he was her baby. And that is the reason he's so strong. The man is comedic genius. I was dying. I loved that scene. I loved that scene. And to top it all off, and this is where things start to turn around, right? To get a little more emotional, because goddamn it gets emotional with Brienne and Jaime knighting Brienne. Right before that scene, Tormund has to do his comedic shit, and he says, bullshit, fuck tradition, you should be a knight, right? You should be Sir Brienne of Toff, I think it's Toff. And he says, look, if I was a king, I would knight you 10 times over. Yo, Tormund, yeah. He's got no filter and he's got no shame, and god damn it, I love it. Go Tormund. He ain't playing, baby. He ain't playing. So and that's when it becomes really emotional. And this scene was super, super emotional, right? Because like Tormund said, fuck tradition. Why does it matter? Right? If you want to be a knight, you have the skill to be a knight. You've protected the Sansa. You've protected Arya. You've done everything and more than any knight could ever dream of doing. In fact, you should most definitely be a knight. And then Jaime does his Jaime thing. He says, fuck it. We don't need a king. All we need is another knight. And looky here, I am a knight too. And he knights Brienne of Toff. And I just want to read you what he says. And I don't know if this is tradition, if this is whatever, but it gave me the goosies. God damn it, I was nearly tearing up. And remember, look, listen, man, this is why I love Game of Thrones. This is the reason I love Game of Thrones, right? Right? I felt it. I mean, it was as emotional as you can possibly get in an episode of Game of Thrones, all right? So let me just quote him right quick. In the name of the warrior, I charge that you be brave. In the name of the Father, I charge you to be just. And in the name of the Mother, I charge you to defend the innocent. Arise, Brienne of Toff, a knight of the 7 kingdoms. Tell me that didn't get you all googly and emotional and tearing up. I mean, that scene was just perfect. It was a perfect scene. Just a perfect scene with the build-up with Tormund and his comedy, with all of the brotherly love that was happening around the fire pit, with Tyrion giving Podrick an overflowing glass of wine. Just everything that you would want in a scene like that. To top it off with Brienne being the first knight in the 7 kingdoms, first woman knight in the 7 kingdoms. Oh, it just doesn't get any better. It just doesn't, right? And then obviously we have to talk about the fact that Jon tells Dany. And again, we're back to it, right? I'm always torn with Dany, right? Like I've been saying since the beginning. I don't know if Dany is way too obsessed with the power or if she's doing it to help protect the people that Cersei has been undermining. Was she freeing the slaves because she knew that was the right thing to do? And would she have freed the slave if that interrupted her plan of becoming the queen of the 7 kingdoms, right? Like, I don't know if she's doing the right thing to do the right thing or if she's doing the right thing because it's just some way on the path to her becoming the queen of the 7 kingdoms, right? I think she's on the path of becoming the queen of, mean, I think she does the right thing because she believes it's the right thing, and she's a good human being, and I want to believe that, but she's so power hungry, and this has been her goal since day one, and she herself told that to Sansa. My goal since day one was to sit on the throne and to avenge the people that have ripped up my family. She said it came out of her own mouth, right? It came out of her own mouth. And so when Jon tells Dany, I am Aaron. I'm sorry that I forgot his name. I just worked 4 days in a row. I got 2 more nights to work. So give me a goddamn break, right? But when Jon tells Dany the big news that he is her that she is her aunt, you know the relationship, that he is the rightful heir to the 7 kingdoms, she's a little taken aback. And I don't blame her. I don't blame her. We'll have to see how her real reaction comes out next episode, if they even have any time before the war begins. But she's not, of course she's questioning it, because it's his best friend and his brother that brought the news to him, right? So I don't blame her too much, but we'll have to see how she actually reacts at the end or in next episode, during the war, before the war, whatever the situation is. We'll have to see what her actual reaction is, because I don't think we had enough time. She hasn't even had it sink in yet. So all of the extra stuff that made one of my favorite episodes even better, right? One of my favorite, all of the extra stuff that happened on the side. Of course, we gotta talk about Arya, baby. We've gotta talk about Arya. Of course, man. Arya, she's a freak. She's a freak. So Arya and Gendry, oh no. Go Ari, go Ari, go 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 Ari. Yeah, no, so it was exciting. Finally, I mean, we knew this was going to happen since season 2 or 3. Whenever they decided, we knew it was going to happen. It was going to happen sooner or later, and it finally happened, and it was fantastic the way it happened, right? Arya, look, listen, obviously Arya this was her first time, right? This was her very first time, but the homegirl is a freak. She is indeed a freak, because it was her first time, but she was manhandled that entire situation. Excuse me, no disrespect. Woman handled that entire situation, right? First of all, she's with the bow and arrows, being all fine and shit, right? And then he comes by and she's taking off her gloves one by one, like she's about to take this dude through a lesson. She's like, how many bimbos have you been with before you could be with this fine young thing, right? And Gendry's confused. Gendry's like, I don't know. Arya, shh. She says, come, just tell me the truth, boo-boo. Let me know. And this is obviously after Gendry gives Arya the sword or the weapon that she's been asking for all of this time. And then Gendry's like, I've been with 3. And Arya's like, I'd love to know what it feels like, right? And this is why I tell you she's a freak. Not because she got it done before the war, because hey, you got to. Everyone's going to die. Understand that. Everyone's going to die. She pushes him on the sack of potatoes or whatever is all over there, and she rides him. She mounts him. She takes ownership. She leads the way in this excursion, right? She takes charge. Arya does not play. No matter if it's fighting, no matter if it's killing, and no matter if she's doing her thing, man. Good for you, Arya. Live your best life. Live your best life. That's all I can say. I was very happy. That cherry on top of the cherries of the greatest show, of the greatest episode. I loved it. God damn it, I loved it, right? And then another scene that was touching for me was Davos. And the reason I say the scene with Davos and the girl with the scar on her face, because it reminded me of Shireen, yes. It reminded me of Shireen. And by the way, I just had to add this because Shireen's death in Game of Thrones was probably the hardest thing I have ever had to watch in television history. The hardest thing I've ever had to watch in television history. Yes, there were much worse deaths that were scary and unpredictable and all of this stuff, right? Because this whole Shireen thing, you saw Melisandre and all of her craziness. And by the way, where is this red-headed witch? Where is she, man? She's sneaking around somewhere. Maybe she's with the Night King right now. We don't know where this lady is. It was one of the saddest things ever. So when Davos saw the girl with the scar on her face, obviously he went right back to that. He thought about that, and she was like, look, I want to fight. And then Gilly was like, why don't you come and protect us in the crypt? We need strong women like you to protect the weak, the sick, the old. Can you come and protect us from the crypt? And she's like, I will do that. And she happily ran away. Thought that was cute. Miss Sunday and Grey Worm, I love their little love thing. They're always on the side. They're not like the big characters, but it's important that we know that there's a resolution to those two. Chances are Grey Worm will die. High percent chance that Grey Worm will die. But they kiss and they talk about how they're gonna run away if and when Danny takes the throne, right? Grey Worm and Miss Sunday will run away to, I forgot what they said, the north, the south, the beaches. They want to go to the beaches, right? They want to go to the beaches. Sam reminds us all that he was the very first human being in this time to kill a White Walker, and I appreciate Sam taking charge. Sam's like, look, boo-boo, I know you guys think I can't fight. In fact, Sam agrees that he can't fight. He gives his sword to Jorah. He says, in fact, even though I can't fight, you guys need me. I was the first one to kill a White Walker, and I stole all those books from, you know, the big library place. I always forget that name, but he stole some books. So he's bad to the bone. He's basically Jon Snow over here, right? He's basically, this is just second coming of Jon Snow. Another funny bit. Hound, he wasn't in the episode as much. I thought maybe he should have been at the fireplace, but that entire scene was just too perfect. I wouldn't want it to go any other way. I can't even complain. I will never complain about that scene. It was perfect. But seeing the Hound and Arya meet up again was fantastic. And that funny line when the Hound stopped that fire-breathing guy, that fire flame guy, the fire god guy, and said, you better shut up. I don't need a sermon right now, because they're going to find out why you were brought back 19 times if I throw you over this goddamn tower right here. And then the last thing about the show, the last thing that happens in the show is that song that Podrick sings at the fireplace. And I have to mention that the song was perfect. Like I said, that fire scene, like probably the perfect. I just loved that scene so much. My God, I just loved it all. That whole setup was just perfect. That song was fantastic. It was beautiful, right? I wanted to listen to it. And on top of that song, that's when they went on there. The camera went to see all of the couples. Sam, his wife, Sam Gilly, and his son. They showed Arya and Gendry. They showed Miss Sunday and Grey Worm. What I did not like, and what I cannot allow, is for Sansa and Theon. I did not like that. And I don't think it's a thing, right? I think it's much more of a brotherly, sisterly type of love that was going on, right? But I just didn't like it around all of the other couples and then Theon and Sansa. That cannot and should not happen, right? That cannot and should not happen. Maybe Sansa and Tyrion, I don't know if that would work. Sansa and literally anyone else besides Theon. I understand the bond that they have because they both left the Boltons, but I really don't want that to happen. That's the only thing I do not agree with in this episode. And then for next week's episode, the reason I love this episode, and I don't watch any other reviews, I try to stay away from anything until I make my review, so it's my honest self, cue the nurse's truth. The reason I love this episode so much is because you know that the impending doom is coming. And this is Game of Thrones we're watching. These folks are not going to be alive, all right? So I'll make that list of everyone you saw, everyone that you were happy to see, all of the reunion stuff, and at least the bare bones minimum is that half of those folks are going to die before the end of the White Walker War, right? Half of them are going to die before the end of the White Walker War. And then the second half of the half is going to die at the very least, is going to die when they fight the Cersei folks, right? When they fight Cersei and the Golden Compass. So understand, this is the last time you can be happy in Game of Thrones. Sing, enjoy this episode, watch it again, rewatch it, bring your friends together, get some popcorn, bring your kids, allow them to enjoy the last bit of happiness you will have until the end of the season, until the end of the series, because this was the perfect episode. You can't get any better than this, and I love it. Like I said, to me, for Q the Nurse, my personal take on this episode, it is easily my favorite, right? I'd say top 3, because I have to rewatch a few, man. That the war against the Boltons, that was a huge episode for me. Yeah, there was a ton of episodes that are very big in scope, and I love them, right? The blowing up of the big green fire when Cersei blew up the church, that was a huge episode for me. But this episode just... without the fighting, without the war, without the explosions, this was the perfect episode for me. So just understand, by the end of the series, like I said at the beginning, the only time you might be happier is if the person you love the most in the show ends up on the throne at the final episode. But up until then, understand that this is the happiest we are allowed to be. This is the happiest we are allowed to be in Game of Thrones. And I promise it will not stay. These folks are going to die. Soak it up. Rewatch this episode as many times as possible before next Sunday. Because once next Sunday hits, your bestest for friends, Brienne, the first night, she might die. Jaime might lose a lot more than just an arm. We might lose Tyrion. Sam Tarly might go. Who knows, man? Jorah, he's on the chopping block. Goddamn it, Jon Snow and Dany on the goddamn chopping block, right? If they're going to be up on those dragons fighting the Night King. Things are going to go down. Shit's about to go down, and I hope y'all are ready for it.